This is the final episode of a 6-part series, Making Cozy Fall. Today, I tackle the most daunting of the Cozy Fall designs and give a review of the Graceful Baker's course, Cozy Fall. Of all of the cookies Grace designed in her series, Cozy Fall, this is the one I was most apprehensive to do. I mean, just look at hers. It's impeccable. But when I decided I wanted to purchase her course, this sweater was one of the reasons. I wanted the guidance she doesn't give on YouTube. While most of the cookies I didn't do in the sequence Grace outlines, because of how I shoot these videos, I did follow her method for this one. This was the second cookie I flooded on decorating day. Because of all of the icing that needs to go on top of the flood layer, I needed the icing to be as dry as time would allow that day. I knew when I sat down to sketch out my version of the design, I wanted to switch up the colors so that my sweater didn't look identical to hers. So I decided on using brown as a base color and autumn gold for the knit portion. Spoiler alert though, the one I decorate in this commentary is actually using a white cable knit. By the end, I will show you the autumn gold version, but the actual decorating of this one is better to watch. With my soft peak outline consistency, I decided to try and freehand it instead of relying on my edible marker, which is what I normally do. I was really trying to stretch myself all throughout the series. So I took off the training wheels and went for it. I missed a little bit up top here, but that's an easy fix. Knowing that this was only the second design I attempted that day, I'm not off to a great start. I completely missed making these lines at the bottom edges, so I had to add them right before I flooded. If you are pressed for time, I do not recommend making this design. It took me over 3.5 minutes just to get the outline all completed and a full 22 minutes from start to finish. And I made 3 of these. I know I'm not the fastest icer in the West, but 22 minutes seems like a really long time for just one cookie. I see there at the bottom right that I could have done a little bit better job with that outline. True Brown is the final color that I used of the Master Elite colors. Just as with all of the other colors I made for this series, I add 1/8 teaspoon of the Master Elite powder to 10 ounces of icing. Add a drop of water in, agitate them together a little with my spatula to allow the powder to dissolve a bit, and then mix it all together. All of the colors I use in this series sat in the freezer for a week prior to my decorating. This allowed the colors to develop. You can see a clear difference between the day I mixed it and what I'm using here. A week isn't necessary. It's just how my preparation to decorating schedule works best for me. The longer you let your dark colors sit, the more they develop. Though there is obviously a point where they are done. I'd say let's talk about the elephant in the room, but in this case, it's a fly. I recall watching a video from another channel where she actually had to mention that she had received negative comments about seeing flies in her kitchen. That poor girl. A fly here or there says nothing about the cleanliness of her house. I grew up in an area plagued with flies because we were surrounded by dairies. Flies were a serious fact of life. Do you know how hard it was for me not to stop what I was doing to deal with this menace? I was lucky these cookies were for my practice and for your viewing pleasure. Though this conversation probably isn't all that pleasant. My apologies. Ugly visible outline be darned. I did allow the outline to dry before flooding because I wanted to be sure the icing was completely held in. For most of the other cookies in the series, I didn't wait for the outline to dry. If you don't already know, I am doing what is called flooding in sections. The idea is to flood each of the sections in a way that will allow for the icing to dry a bit or crust over before adding icing in next to it, so that I end up with a neat little seam between each section. I'll spare you the visual, just know I got him. I was so infuriated with this intruder, I didn't realize until editing that my camera was still rolling. You probably have seen many decorating videos where the person decorating puts a squiggle of icing under the smaller sections of flood on a cookie, and may have noticed I have not added any. When they add these squiggles, they're trying to avoid cratering or dips in those areas. I rarely have problems with cratering. I'm pretty sure my dry climate plays a part in that, so I don't even worry about it. And if I do end up with some cratering, doesn't bother me too much. The only time I really experience cratering is when my flood icing is very thin. You can see what I mean in the white parts of the pumpkin from part 5. The ripples and dimples are all throughout. You can see there in the middle that there are striations or streaks in my icing. This happens when the icing starts to separate, usually several hours after bagging. Though I do find it interesting that it happened here, as my icing had not been sitting very long when I flooded this cookie. Maybe an hour. Here's the footage from the burgundy cookie, and it looks like I had it happen there too. I'm wondering if this is another indication that my colors were oversaturated, which isn't supposed to happen with the Master Elite powders. And I used a very similar ratio of powder to icing as Grace did in the tutorial she did about the Master Elites. In fact, I used 2 more ounces of the icing than she did, but my colors were clearly darker, aka more saturated. The striations don't bother me, just pondering my icing situation. Looking at the seam of the left sleeve and the seam at the bottom, I see that I didn't get a nice clean edge. Luckily, because of all of the icing I will be putting on top, you won't even be able to see it. That is the beauty of these more intricate designs. They help to cover up any problems you have underneath, like less than ideal seams, craters, and striations. If you watch many of her videos, you will often hear Grace say she is a huge fan of things that distract the eye from her mistakes, and that as you progress in decorating, you just get better at hiding the boo-boos. The most difficult cookies to do really are the ones with the least going on. You can't cover up the bad seams, striations, and craters, but at the end of the day, I notice this. The people I give cookies to never notice anything wrong with them. They love them. They aren't the ones who are sitting and watching hours and hours of cookie videos, or spending mass quantities of mental energy on designing, decorating, and dissatisfaction. They are delighted encouragers who give us the push to keep going. This is where the rubber meets the road. I am fully committed to doing this cable knit. I've got my medium peak consistency icing, and I'll be here with it for a while. It's a fairly simple concept. To start the row, you pipe a C shape, and then going down, you pipe equally sized backwards S's all connected to each other. The beauty of this is where each flipped S nestles into each other's neck. But I'm not quite at beauty yet. It is a whole lot harder than Grace makes it look. Hers has a very soft, smooth look to it. Mine does not. I have 2 thoughts on this. 1, my application is jaggedy, leaving sharp points rather than a soft curve. The other, I'm pretty sure my medium peak is a little on the dry side. While they come out fairly straight, watching the wiggles as I pipe is a bit amusing. The inclination to hold my breath is quite overwhelming, and I can tell you, holding your breath doesn't actually stop the wiggling. I experience this every time I do my first passive flooding next to the outline. In evaluating my situation so far, I figured out pretty quickly I wasn't going to be able to stuff as many rows on my cookie as Grace did on hers. Luckily, unless you're counting, I don't think it's too noticeable. The general overall effect is the same. Since we have plenty of time until the end of this cookie, I thought now would be the perfect time to recap my overall experience of making Cozy Fall. I have heard Grace say that her online course, Cozy Fall, was designed for the advanced beginner/intermediate decorator, of which I kinda thought I was, until I made this set. Now, it is possible that I encountered many small, I don't know what to call them, deficiencies, obstacles, or less than ideal circumstances that turned into a small storm that left me feeling underwhelmed by the finished set. Now, as of editing this final video, it has been almost a month since I actually decorated these cookies. And as with most other things in life, after a while, memories fade and emotions settle down. Anticipating this, I wrote down exactly how I was feeling the very next morning. I am going to read you exactly what I wrote, unedited. Don't worry, there isn't anything you should be concerned about little ears hearing. Though, because it is unedited, it doesn't sound too polished. Kinda like my cookies. I'm going to read it with the inflection and cadence with which it was written. Okay, here goes. Very dissatisfied with final turnout. Even problems with the camera settings on the side shot. Considered just remaking the whole set. Partially because it's the cookie decorating watching season and I want to put out the best that I can, I don't want to lose any of the momentum I have going here, however small it is. But then I remembered what it is I'm actually trying to accomplish for the viewer with this channel. The whole backbone of this channel is the struggle we all go through when we learn something new. I even have an episode called The Struggle of New. If I reshot the series, I would be a fraud. The truth is, I didn't do great with these cookies for a number of reasons. And it is what it is. I felt like I had some significant wins with the last 2 Humblebee and Halloweenish sets, and that probably skewed my expectations of what I could produce for Cozy Fall. So not having my expectations met irritates me. The class is made for an advanced beginner/intermediate decorator. The way I'm feeling right now says I'm still a beginner. I thought I was past that. I guess not. When I wrote that, I was just writing notes down to reference for these videos. However, today I thought it would be more impactful to read it as is. The point I want to make is, this is what we all go through when we're learning something new. At times, the struggle brings me to frustrated tears, and at others, to jubilant celebration. All of the various emotions are part of the human experience and are of value. With these experiences, we are able to relate to others and potentially help someone else through a tough time or allow us to joyfully celebrate alongside them. If we didn't have our own varied experiences, we wouldn't be able to understand another's. With regards to the actual Cozy Fall course, first, a disclaimer. I do not know Grace, I have never met her, and I have never spoken to her. I have, however, watched every last one of her real-time tutorials multiple times. I could probably almost narrate my way through some of them. I literally have the whole tutorials playlist saved for easy access. Her videos have been inspirational to say the least, and by far the most impactful instructional resources for me in learning how to decorate cookies. I promise I'm not fangirling. I just want to give credit where credit is due. That being said, if you are looking to make this set and don't want to have to try to figure out any of it for yourself, I definitely recommend purchasing it. She lays out everything. I mean, everything you could ever possibly want to know about making the set, and then some. She covers how to hold the piping bags for different applications, how to cut the tips properly, how to make the exact colors she used, as well as alternative ways to produce the colors. She walks you through a practice sheet on piping, decorates alongside you in an orderly, time-considerate way, and on and on. Her 81-page downloadable workbook comes with links to all of the different applicable tutorials she has on YouTube, as well as a 2-hour instructional video specifically recorded to instruct you. She includes many things she never shows on YouTube, and to say that she has put this course together with her students in mind is a massive understatement. However, that same 81-page workbook was not something that interested me too much. This is quite possibly a result of the many, and I mean many hours of watching her content. I didn't need the workbook. I did need the video. I imagine all of her courses are equally considerate and recommend purchasing 1, 2, or 3 should you be interested. I'm down to adding these final touches to the sweater. I actually love this little last-minute addition. It's a super easy technique that boosts the sweateriness of the design. I also love how it mimics the look of the stem on the pumpkin. It's one of those elements Grace is always talking about that helps to harmonize a set. Hopefully you have made it this far and will stay until the end, because I always give you a little heads up about what's coming up next from Kuny's Cookies. I think of this as an ongoing series. Oh, by the way, I rarely mention this, but in the event you are still curious, I am the Kuny of Kuny's Cookies. When I mention a we, that would be me and cameraman. The kid under 18 years old who is solely behind the scenes for now and has taught me everything I need to know about shooting, editing, and uploading for YouTube. He has done such an amazing job, he is now only a resource for me when I'm stuck. Here are the alternates I made. I only have one last thing to say about this design. I don't think I have enough patience for the knit technique at this point. See you next time!
Next time on Kuny's Cookie Chronicles.
This is part 1 of our 5-part decorating series, Sweet Baby. Today, I share with you how I made this sweet baby bottle.